The laughter started before Keanu Reeves even reached the microphone. He could hear it from the back of the small community hall. A few teenagers were whispering. Someone near the stage covered a smile. Even the host looked uncomfortable, as if he already knew the joke had gone too far. Keanu stood quietly beside the stage, wearing a simple black jacket and dark jeans. He had come to the local charity event because someone had asked him to support a group of young performers. He wasn't supposed to perform. At least, that was what he thought. The host suddenly walked toward him with a microphone. "Keanu," he said with a nervous grin, "we have a surprise for you." The audience applauded. Keanu raised an eyebrow. "A surprise?" The host laughed. "We thought it would be fun if you joined our talent show." The audience reacted immediately. Some people cheered, others laughed. Keanu looked toward the stage. "Sing?" "Exactly," the host replied. Someone shouted from the crowd, "Come on, Keanu! Give us a song." More laughter followed. Keanu smiled politely. But something about the moment felt strange. He looked at the young performers waiting backstage. One teenage boy stood completely still. Unlike everyone else, he wasn't laughing. He was staring at Keanu with an expression that looked almost desperate. Keanu noticed him. Then the boy quickly looked away. Keanu turned back toward the host. "I should warn you," he said quietly. "I'm not exactly a singer." The crowd laughed again. The host raised his hands. "That's what makes it entertaining." Keanu could have simply refused. Nobody would have blamed him. Instead, he looked toward the young boy backstage. Then he asked, "How much time do I have?" The laughter disappeared. The host blinked. "You're actually going to do it?" Keanu nodded. "One song." The audience erupted in applause, but nobody noticed the boy backstage quietly walking away. Several minutes later, Keanu stood behind the curtain. A small acoustic guitar had been placed on a chair. He picked it up and gently tested the strings. Then he heard footsteps. The same teenage boy appeared. His name was Daniel. "Mr. Reeves?" "Keanu is fine." Daniel hesitated. "Why did you agree?" Keanu smiled. "Because everyone deserves a chance to surprise people." Daniel stared at him. Then he whispered something unexpected. "I wasn't laughing, I know." The boy's eyes suddenly became wet. "My mother used to sing." Keanu's expression changed. "What happened?" Daniel looked toward the floor. "She passed away last year." For a moment, the noise from the hall seemed to disappear. "She wanted me to sing tonight," Daniel continued, "but I couldn't do it." Keanu slowly placed the guitar down. "Then maybe tonight isn't about me." Daniel looked confused. "What do you mean?" Keanu pointed toward the stage. "Maybe it's about finishing something she started." Daniel shook his head. "I can't." "You don't have to be perfect," Keanu said. "You just have to be honest." Before Daniel could answer, the stage manager suddenly rushed toward them. "We have a problem." Keanu turned. "The sound system has failed." The room became chaotic. The microphones stopped working. The speakers went silent. The talent show was seconds away from being cancelled. Then Keanu looked at the old acoustic guitar. He smiled. "Maybe we don't need the speakers." The stage manager stared at him. "What are you thinking?" Keanu walked toward the stage, and for the first time that evening, nobody was laughing. Keanu stepped onto the stage holding the old guitar. There was no microphone, no music playing in the background, no dramatic lighting, just a single warm spotlight above him. The crowd became unusually quiet. Keanu looked at the audience. "I was asked to sing tonight as a joke," he said. A few people lowered their eyes, but sometimes, he continued, a joke can accidentally become something meaningful. The room fell completely silent. Keanu sat down. He began playing a simple melody. His voice wasn't polished. It wasn't powerful in the way people expected from professional singers. It was quiet, gentle, human, and somehow that made everyone listen. The audience slowly stopped moving. A woman in the front row covered her mouth. The host stood frozen beside the curtain. But then something happened that nobody expected. Keanu stopped playing. He looked toward the side of the stage. "Daniel?" The boy froze. Keanu smiled. "You don't have to sing alone." Daniel shook his head. "I can't," Keanu replied softly. "Then just stand beside me." Daniel slowly walked onto the stage. The audience began applauding. He stood beside Keanu. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then Keanu began playing. Again. Daniel quietly joined him. His voice trembled. The key. First line barely escaped his mouth, but he continued. Then something changed. His voice became stronger. People in the audience began crying. The host looked toward the stage manager. What song is that? The stage manager shook his head. I don't know, Daniel continued singing, and halfway through the song, he suddenly stopped. He looked at Keanu. I forgot the next line. Keanu leaned toward him. That's okay, Daniel whispered. My mom used to sing that part. Keanu nodded. Then tell us about her. Daniel stared at the audience. My mother worked 2 jobs, he said. She was always tired, but every night before I slept, she sang to me. The room was silent. She told me that one day I'd be brave enough to sing in front of people. Daniel wiped his eyes. Thought she was wrong. Keanu looked at him. She wasn't. Daniel took a breath. Then he started again. This time, his voice filled the room. When the song ended, nobody moved. For 3 seconds, there was complete silence. Then the entire hall erupted in applause. People stood. Some were crying, others simply stared at the stage. Daniel looked at Keanu. I did it. Keanu smiled. Yes, you did. But then the host walked onto the stage holding a small envelope. I found this backstage, he said. Daniel recognized it immediately. Had his name written on the front. His hands began shaking. My mother. He opened it. Inside was a short handwritten note. Daniel read it silently. Then he broke down crying. Keanu placed a hand gently on his shoulder. What does it say? Daniel couldn't speak. Finally, he whispered. She said she hoped I would sing even when she wasn't there to hear me. Keanu looked down. The entire room was silent again. Then Daniel did something nobody expected. He handed the note to Keanu. Will you read it? Keanu looked at the boy. Are you sure? Daniel nodded. Keanu carefully unfolded the paper, and as he began reading, his voice became quieter. The words were simple, but they changed the entire meaning of the evening. The talent show had never really been about Keanu singing. It had been about a boy finding the courage to keep a promise, and Keanu had unknowingly walked onto that stage at exactly the moment Daniel needed someone to believe in him. But the biggest surprise of the night was still waiting backstage. After the performance, the audience slowly began leaving, but Daniel remained backstage. He sat alone with his mother's letter. Keanu found him there. You okay? Daniel nodded. Then he looked up. I have to tell you something. Keanu sat beside him. Daniel reached into his backpack and pulled out an old photograph. It showed his mother standing on a small stage with a guitar. Keanu looked at the photograph. Then he noticed something written on the back, a name, and beneath it, the name of the community center. Daniel explained that his mother had once performed at the same place. She wanted me to perform here one day, he said. Keanu smiled. Looks like you kept your promise. Daniel looked down. I thought tonight was going to be embarrassing. Keanu laughed softly. So did I. Daniel smiled for the first time that night. Then the stage manager entered. There is something you both should see. He led them to an old storage room. Inside were boxes filled with photographs, programs, and recordings from years of local performances. The manager pulled out one dusty box. This belonged to your mother. Daniel stared at it. Inside was an old cassette recording. His mother's voice. Daniel couldn't move. Can we hear it? He asked. The manager nodded. They found an old player. A few seconds of static filled the room. Then a woman's voice came through. Daniel immediately recognized it. Hey, Daniel? He covered his mouth. His mother had recorded the message years earlier. I don't know when you're going to hear this, the recording continued, but if you're scared someday, remember something. Daniel began crying. Being brave doesn't mean you aren't afraid. It means you don't let fear decide what you do next. Keanu stood quietly beside him. The recording continued. And if you ever sing on this stage, don't sing because people are watching. A pause. Sing because you have something worth saying. The recording ended. Nobody spoke. Daniel looked at Keanu. I thought I lost her. Keanu answered gently. You didn't lose. Everything she gave you, Daniel nodded through his tears. The next morning, something unexpected happened. Video of the performance had been recorded by someone in the audience. It began spreading online. People weren't talking about Keanu. They were talking about Daniel. Thousands of strangers were encouraging him. A local music teacher offered him free lessons. A small community organization offered to help with his education, and the charity that had organized the event created a scholarship in his mother's name. Daniel was overwhelmed, but Keanu never wanted attention for himself. Before leaving, he gave Daniel one final piece of advice. Don't let one good night become your destination. Daniel smiled. What should it become? Your beginning. Years later, Daniel would still remember that night. Not because a famous actor had agreed to sing, not because a crowd had applauded, but because for a few minutes, someone had believed in him when he had stopped believing in himself. And perhaps that was the real lesson. Sometimes people laugh because they don't understand what they are looking at. Sometimes a difficult moment arrives disguised as a joke, and sometimes the person standing beside you at your lowest point doesn't change your life by giving you something. They change it by reminding you that you already have something worth fighting for. That night, Keanu had stepped onto a stage expecting to be the joke. Instead, he became part of a moment that gave a grieving young man his voice back. And the most beautiful part, Keanu never needed to be the best singer in the room. He only needed to be the person willing to listen. Because sometimes the greatest performance isn't the one that receives the loudest applause. It's the one that helps someone else find the courage to begin again.